Back to another show of Buckshots with Luke and Trevor. We're 27 minutes late today. I think that had to do a little bit with the time change we went through. There's college basketball and there's a lot of stuff going on. So forgive us for being 27 minutes late, but at least we got here to a show. I guess Trevor, just tell me how's your weekend been?
You say we're 27 minutes late. I say we might be 33 minutes early, depending on how you want to look at it.
That's true.
It's been good, mostly college basketball, so a little flipping of the switch to the pros.
Yeah, and then just kind of bouncing off of that college basketball, there's basically playoff basketball until the end of June now. So if you're a basketball fan, these next 3.5 months should be pretty fun to watch. Um, and I guess if you're a baseball fan, you finally have, I mean, we finally have a sport that we can watch this summer, right? So we're not deprived of anything in July. Um, but getting into the games, let's start with let's go with the Bucks here. We had talked about last week. The Bucks had the finals rematch against the Suns. Then they went then Oklahoma City, Atlanta, and Golden State. Just kind of kicking it off. Let's talk about the Suns a little bit. Sure, both you and I had talked last week about this, saying don't know how big of a threat the Suns are right now, considering that Chris Paul, Cam Johnson, and Devin Booker were out. The Bucks won 132 to 122, won by 10 points. On the Bucks side of the ball, maybe Chris Middleton's best game of the year with 44 points on 16 of 27 shooting, 5 of 9 from three-pointer. Giannis 19, 13, and 6. And another 24 for Drew Holiday, who kind of carried what he did last week, or I guess I should say 2 weeks ago, into last week in terms of his high scoring outputs. So, Trevor, I guess before I ask you about your thoughts for this game, I will note that only two players scored off the bench. I guess only four players played off the bench, but only two scored. Jordan Nora with 12 and Serge Ibaka with 14. So, Trevor, immediately watching this game and now that we're breaking down, thinking back to it, what stood out to you in this game?
What stood out to me was Nora playing 26 minutes. I think he can be a great shooter, but I think sometimes his basketball IQ and selfishness is a complete detriment to the team.
Hmm.
I think he should be out there. I'm not saying that, but when you have Carter getting 14 and Bembry getting 9, Nora shouldn't be getting 26. He just shouldn't. Um, Defensively, I don't really know what he brings you. I'm going to be honest. So that kind of stood out to me. But other than that, I mean, it was just another example that when Chris Middleton is on, uh, there isn't a dang thing anybody in the NBA can do.
Hmm.
Because when he's on, he's basically prime Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant combined.
Right. So just to speak on Jordan Nora for a minute, it's great that we have Jordan Nora. Like in the NBA, you can never have too many shooters, right? But it almost feels like Jordan Nora better fits, like an Oklahoma City or a Magic or a team who doesn't really have anything to play for, and they can just have guys go out there and score, right?
Yeah.
So while I do agree with you that 26 minutes is probably too much, Jordan Nora should probably see, I guess come crunch time and playoff time, maybe 10 minutes a game, if that, right?
Yeah.
So that'll be really interesting to watch how Mike Budenholzer uses him moving forward as the Bucks kind of need to win some games down the stretch. So keep your eye out for that. See what Jordan Nora does, and if he plays, in this game, like you said, kind of a little bit of a selfish player. He shot 5 for 10, but 1 of 6 for 3. So he was able to get shots in, just not the shots that he specializes in. Um, and Trevor, you had touched on Chris Middleton, who was hitting the shots that he specialized in. 5 for 9 from 3-point land, 44 points. He's almost like Klay Thompson, right? Once Klay Thompson gets hot, that ball's going up and it's going in every single time. That
Pretty
Chris
much.
Middleton's starting to get a little bit that way, and I don't think a lot of people are realizing that outside of Milwaukee fans, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So it's really hard to beat the Bucks when Chris Middleton is hot. I think we both agree on that, and we'll put it at that. But on the Sun side of the ball, Um, Campaign led the game. 23, or I'm sorry, DeAndre Ayton led the game. 30 points on 14 of 19 shooting. Campaign added 23 on 9 of 19 shooting. Jay Crowder 19, Mikal Bridges 14, and Landry Shamet 17. Suns only had 3 players score off the bench: Torrey Craig, Aaron Holiday, and JaVale McGee, who combined for 19 points. So Trevor, obviously the big thing here for Phoenix was DeAndre Ayton, and I think in the finals last year, Bucks fans kind of had an idea. Oh, maybe DeAndre Ayton's he could be a good center in the league for a while to come. Maybe not worth his max contract that he's trying to seek out, but it's definitely I don't want to say a thorn in the Bucks side, but it's definitely a hindrance to the Bucks, right? Is DeAndre Ayton?
Yeah, without Brook, yeah. I don't think he's that good. He kind of he's to centers as Draymond Green is to power forwards to me. He's not really big enough and powerful enough to be like a Shaq, but he's big enough to be able to go against the undersized guys, which makes him kind of hard to defend against when you only have Bobby and Giannis, really.
Mm-hmm.
But once Brook is in there, he can't just bully Brook. He doesn't use his speed a lot. I think that's why he's been going off in the 2 games against the Bucks.
Does he feel a little DeAndre Jordan-ish to you?
A little bit, yeah.
And I guess that's the result of playing with Chris Paul. Is Chris Paul kind of gave DeAndre Jordan a career. Um, I do think that DeAndre Ayton's better than DeAndre Jordan ever was, but it definitely helps when you're a center to have Chris Paul running your point guard. But Trevor, talk to me about campaign a little bit. Why I mean, every time the Bucks play the Suns, he always feels like he's a thorn in the side. He feels like a guy that you hate playing against, but you love having on your team. He's a guy who kind of plays recklessly, I'll say. Because he does some really good things, he does some really bad things, including dribbling off your foot a couple times as an NBA player, and he'll hit big threes every now and then. So just give me your thoughts on campaign. It doesn't necessarily have to be to this game, but if you want to tie it to this game, go ahead.
I'm going to kind of tie him to Jay Crowder. I think they're both um, light versions of PJ Tucker in terms of tenacity and hustle and being quote unquote dogs. But I think the problem is they just keep moving, and for whatever reason, and looking at this game down the stretch when it was still really close, the Bucks didn't really fight much over screens to get to these guys on
Yeah.
threes. And Jay Crowder took all his time on the threes, and Cam Payne kind of did the same thing. And so I think when you have guys like those two that just kind of move around a lot and are constantly moving, it's tough to defend. And for whatever reason, the Bucks don't seem to want to put a whole lot of effort into it. But they got to start figuring out soon that better change, because if they play the Suns in the playoffs and they're still doing this shit, it's not going to go well for them.
Right, and the thing is, like, they're doing the shit without Chris Paul and Cam Johnson and Devin Booker, who are 3, of the better shooters in the NBA, right? But it almost felt to me like at the end there, they weren't fighting over screens. They weren't playing great defense. It just looked like they were tired. I don't know if you agree with that, but from watching it from my vantage point, it looked like they're tired. And that's what happens. You don't fight through screens. You're short on your shots, short on free throws. You don't dive for loose balls. Um, so hopefully, that doesn't happen come playoffs, right? Because I'm sure it won't, based on what we saw last year. But I do think that's a little worrisome to see, a team get tired out by a team without Chris Paul, Devin Booker, or Cam Johnson. I know, the Bucks have been kind of all over the map in terms of where they're playing, but you need to close out games stronger than that in my mind. I know they won by 10, but that was kind of a poor performance on defense.
Yeah, and I understand Giannis fouled out, right? So he only
Hmm.
played 31 minutes. The types of offenses you can roll out there are hindered.
Right.
But Drew Holiday's played 38 minutes. Like we kind of touched on before, Carter and Bembry combined for 23. I'm not saying you need Carter and Bembry in there for 20 minutes apiece, but when it's clearly being tired and when you have a guy like Middleton taking over and the game plan is to get him the ball, get him to his spots, I don't see why you play Holiday for 38 minutes.
It feels like Javon Carter is a not I don't want to say a bad version of Drew Holiday, but like a poor man's version of Drew Holiday, right? Who can get after you, physical on defense. who can hit threes. Maybe not as good as penetrators, whatever, but it's a similar play style. So I'm almost wondering now that I think of it, I don't know why this didn't click until now. Like Budenholzer is just going to use Javon Carter as Drew Holiday when Drew Holiday is on the bench, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you would think maybe Drew Holiday does not need to play more than 35 minutes unless he's hot or something in any given game, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Let's talk about, I guess, why the Bucks won this game. I mean, a big factor in why the Bucks won this game because they shot the same. Phoenix actually made more field goals than the Bucks on the day. Both shot 54% from the field. Bucks had one more 3-pointer, but Suns shot 45%. Bucks shot 47%. The Bucks destroyed Phoenix in free throws, hitting 15 more. Trevor, was this the reason the Bucks won? Was hitting these free throws?
Yeah, and I'm so tired. I have great respect for Monty Williams, but I'm so tired of his complaining about free throws.
Mm-hmm.
I think statistically, the Suns take either the least or the second least amount of shots in the paint or driving to the hoop in the entire NBA. When
Right.
that's your play style, you can't bitch about getting 11 free throws to the Bucks 29 when their whole game plan is we're going to hit you in the mouth. So I think that's a problem that the Phoenix Suns have to really think about if they do play the Bucks in the finals, because you can complain all you want about the foul disparity, but if you play that way, you're not going to win many games against a team like the Bucks. Luckily for them, there is only one team that plays like the Bucks, but unluckily for them, the Bucks are one of the teams that they're very likely to play if they make the finals.
And this is why that I don't know that the Suns, I'm sure they can win a championship, right? I don't know that they have a great shot. I don't even want to say that, but you know what I'm saying about winning a championship because they don't play inside basketball very well. The most penetration they get is Chris Paul taking the guard off a dribble, and he very rarely gets like and ones or like a Giannis finish at the hoop and one. Usually it's a lob to DeAndre Ayton, a step back floater, fadeaway. I mean, Devin Booker can penetrate, but it's the same thing. Like these guys, it seems to me they don't go out seeking contact. And I do think a little bit of reffing may have to do with Chris Paul being on the team because I don't think a lot of refs like Chris Paul, just based on how he plays and how vocal he is with the NBA PA and vocal on the court. So whether it be fair or not, I think Monty Williams is always going to be at the expense of refs, right? Where maybe other coaches like Budenholzer or Frank Vogel in LA can kind of get away with it, knowing that they have Giannis and LeBron getting to the paint, most of their possessions, right? So, like I said, the Bucks won this game by 10. Maybe another finals rematch. Who knows? But Trevor, were you happy with this? I guess it's always you're always happy to beat. I guess fans are maybe it's kind of a kindling of a little bit of a rivalry here. It's hard to say that without Chris Paul and Devin Booker on the floor. But were you happy with the turnout of this game?
A win's a win.
Yeah,
I'm not going to nitpick too much, especially against a team like Phoenix.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I've always said in the NFL, you don't apologize for wins. In basketball, you don't really apologize for wins after All-Star break. So I'm in the same boat as you. Anything else you want to mention about this game?
No.
It just kind of felt like a dominant showing over an inferior opponent with the Suns. I shouldn't even say dominant. It was a good win over an inferior opponent without you know three of their six top six rotation guys. So then Tuesday, the Bucks traveled to Oklahoma City, where this was a domination of a more inferior opponent. Bucks won 142-115. Um, this game, Giannis followed out last game at 16, 19 points. He had 39 points in this game, 39, 7, and 7 on 13 of 19 shooting, and he went a perfect 4 for 4 from the 3-point line. Chris Middleton added 25, and Bobby Portis with 18. Trevor, talk to me about this game a little bit. Was this game go as how you expected it to go?
Yeah, I mean, there's really, to I'm trying to be nice to Oklahoma City, but there's really nothing to this game, right? Like the Bucks are much better than the Thunder. The Bucks shot well, and they just kind of dominated. it didn't feel like there was that many storylines, outside of Giannis just hitting some threes because, the Thunder, they played well, but, they shot well, but their defense, they're just so behind everybody else. But Shea is really the only player on that team that can do much of anything on both sides of the court.
That's funny that you said there's not really storylines to this game because when I was watching this on Tuesday, I'm like, what are Trevor and I even going to talk about on the show about this game?
Just
I
pass it over.
right. I guess we can mention Buckshot 43 of or 53 of 100. So obviously 53%. The first thing that sticks out to me is 100 shots is crazy to me. They shot 20 of 40 on 3-pointers, and 16 of 20 on free throws. So they shot 50% or better in all three of the shooting categories. But like you had mentioned, Oklahoma City's defense is bad. I guess really their whole team is bad. But to get 100 shots against a bad team, like that's what you have to do, right?
Yeah, and
So
on top of that, 16-6 offensive rebounds. Like
yeah,
the Thunder were never going to win with that.
yeah, and the just to add on to that, the Bucks out rebounded the Thunder 53-36 without Brook Lopez. So that, and me and you have been talking all season about how are we going to get rebounds, how are you going to defend big guys, how are you going to get Giannis some help by getting some other inside play. It's easy to see that in this game, and I think it's huge for the Bucks to see that in this game with, what is it, 18, 6, 17, some games remaining. So to get these guys some work in the paint, it's nice to see without Brook Lopez. Is there anything else you want to talk about this game, Trevor? I mean, there's not much to talk about. I'll
No.
mention on Oklahoma City side, you had brought up Shea, 33 points. Their next highest scorer, Lindy Waters, with 16 points. So that tells you where the Bucks or with the Thunder side on. I will say that the Thunder were without Josh Giddey, Derek Favors, Mike Muscala, Jeremiah Robinson, Earl, Lou Dort, and Ty Jerome, all with injuries. So make of this game what you will, but I don't know that this game would have turned out much different if most of those guys who were injured for the Thunder had played. Although I do like Josh Giddey, he's definitely a fun player to watch. So the next day, let's go to Wednesday, where the Bucks traveled from Oklahoma City back to Milwaukee in less than 24 hours. This is a game that we both thought maybe a letdown game, just because of travel time and whatever. The Bucks proved something here. They beat the Hawks 124-115. And I know what you're saying, like, fuck you, Luke. What do you mean they proved something against the Hawks? The Bucks, they proved that they can play, while tired. I think it does help that you have Oklahoma City as the first game, where maybe guys don't need to play a whole ton of minutes. But to come out and play, to beat the team that you beat in the Eastern Conference Finals last year, it's always nice to see, especially on a back-to-back. Giannis in this game, 43 points, 15 of 22 shooting. Chris Middleton, 23 points, 9 of 17 shooting. And outside of that, and Bobby Portis, 23 points on 9 of 17 shooting. Outside of that, Grayson Allen and Drew Holiday went both for 11 points. Trevor, talk to me about this game a little bit because I haven't thought of a question yet. So I guess just give me your thoughts on this game.
Yeah, one of the things that we've talked about is the inability for the Bucks to generate many turnovers, and
Right.
it happened again with Atlanta having 9. But you look at the Bucks and they had 8, and that's really good. I mean, under double digits is good in college, very good in the NBA. Granted, Drew Holiday had 4 of them. He had an off night, 5 of 17 shooting. But even if Drew Holiday had 7, if you have 8 as a team, you're going to put yourself in a nice position. But for me, the thing that stuck out for me is teams have given up on stopping Giannis.
Yeah.
Watching this game, Atlanta, I don't care what they think happened. I don't care how much they complain. It started out, when Giannis started getting good about he's traveling because people didn't understand gather steps. And now they're saying he's charging every time
Mm-hmm.
because Clint Capella is, how big is he? He is 7 feet tall, 6'10", 256 pounds. And if you looked at him fall on the ground, it's like he got hit by a semi truck going 50 down the interstate. Um, the Hawks just flop, and I don't know what they expect, but it's entertaining seeing how hard teams are subscribing to the flop and pray you get a call theory. And
Right.
even funnier to me, You're a center and you're flopping. Like if you're a point guard, okay, like you're probably gonna draw some more. You are 7 feet tall, 260. You like nobody's gonna buy that.
Yeah, and that speaks to how good Giannis is. I think we can put it at that, right? We can how dominant he is. Like, there's never been a player in NBA history that's been like Giannis, who can just kind of take over games by taking 2 steps from the 3-point line, and put in a dunk, whatever he wants to do. But what I noticed about this game, and now it pops out now that I'm going back looking at the stats, is John Collins just got a huge extension from the Hawks. He had 2 points on 0 of 9 shooting. I know he only played 19 minutes, but John Collins is probably, Trey Young's obviously their franchise player, the best player. John Collins is his number two, and I'm guessing that the Hawks want to ride Trey Young and John Collins for as long as they can. Um, you need more out of John Collins, especially with an undermanned big men Bucks team, and I guess that speaks to Clint Capella too, with only getting 19 minutes. Um, the Hawks just played bad in my mind. They shot what? They shot 50% from the field, but 11 of 38 from the 3-point line, 29%. So I know the Bucks did win this game, yes, but I do think it helps a lot that the Hawks also kind of lost this game.
Yeah, like I don't understand what their game plan was. Obviously, Capella had to play a lot less because he had 5 fouls, but
Hmm.
like you're playing an undersized Bucks team. You have Collins and Capella in there. You have Okongwu, who hasn't played a lot, isn't great, but he's a big guy. You got Gorju Dieng off the bench. He hasn't played much, but again, big guy. I would have thought the game plan would be to pound it inside, right? John
Hmm.
Collins took 9 shots, 5 of them were threes. Well, if John Collins is taking a three, who the hell is getting the rebounds, right?
Hmm.
Because Capella was only in for 20 minutes. So it just seemed like a really weird strategy when they could have pounded it inside. To your point, when you play poorly on top of that, it's just kind of dumbfounding.
And that's where the Hawks kind of got hot in the playoffs last year, right? Was getting that inside game going so he could open up Trey Young to do whatever he wants at the 3-point line. Um, and then that obviously helped, Trey Young penetrate, and that's why we saw so many lobs thrown to John Collins and Clint Capella last year. I'm wondering if the Bucks watched the last finals to prepare for this game, and maybe the Bucks had something in their game plan where we're not going to let Trey Young beat us on lobs. We're not going to let John Collins and Clint Capella beat us on lobs, and it was huge, to see Clint Capella get those 5 fouls and to get him out of the game. Um, so I do think that the Hawks still have the talent to be a playoff team. I think they do still have the talent to make a run in the East, but their window is kind of closing here, I guess, for this season. Pretty quickly, they're under 500, 32 and 34 as of right now, 10th in the East. Um, so Trevor, let's say we get a rematch of Atlanta Milwaukee in the playoffs. Does Trey Young and company worry you at all?
No, because of what they have to go through. Right now, they have a 3 game lead over Washington for the last play-in spots.
Hmm.
I'm assuming first round they'd be playing in the play-in. That is, they'd be playing Charlotte probably, and then the loser of Toronto Brooklyn. And if they win both those games, then they come into a series and they have to go to Milwaukee. Like I don't know how that's gonna work. I also don't know if it's possible to play the Bucks if they don't get the Bucks don't get the 1 seed, but the road they're gonna have to take just to get into the playoffs is tough. And then, like we've talked about so much, 1 through 6 in the East is loaded this year.
Hmm.
So I mean, I mean, they have nothing to lose, which is great, but realistically, I don't know what they do.
And kind of add to that, that's a little like I having to play 2 play-in games, if that's the case, they're gonna be right in a row, and then having to go and try to stop Giannis. I don't think anyone wants to feel that feat. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting spot for the Hawks because I think everyone thought that like them and the Knicks, based off of last year, were going to be right there, probably that 5-6 seed. But both those teams have underperformed heavily this year. Um, so I think we will see a different Eastern Conference bracket. I guess is what I'm trying to get at here, and it sounds like you may agree with me on that. So I mean, like I said, Bucks won 124, 115. Um, looking this, looking at the stats and kind of going back in this game, nothing really stuck out to me. I guess 62 points in the paint compared to their 46 points in the paint. And then we had kind of mentioned with that game plan, and I guess something that always helps with to win games is second chance points. Bucks had 18, Hawks had 4. So that I mean that goes hand in hand with Clint Capella having fouls and John Collins not playing well. But I've said on the show many times, I've said in my life many times, offensive rebounds, it helps you win championships. Bucks had 4 more than the Hawks here, and that led to obviously 18 more points compared to the Hawks 4. So even when the Hawks were getting offensive rebounds, the Bucks were limiting those second chance points, which is always nice to see. But Trevor, anything else you want to mention about this game?
I think the big downfall of having Clint Capella is his free throw shooting.
Mhm.
So to your point about getting the offensive rebounds, like the thing that I liked that the Bucks did was Clint Capella comes down with the rebound before he even goes up, just foul him.
Yep.
Send him to the line. Like, don't even give him the chance at a putback. Foul him so hard he can't even put it up. Like, he's the only guy that can get rebounds, and he shot 1 for 5 from this game. He's not going to shoot 20% in
Hmm.
the season or in a series, but he is not a good free throw shooter. And I've always felt that put these guys at the line, make them earn it, make them feel it. And that's a huge downfall for the Hawks because if they're not going to get anything from John Collins, or at least not get him to take over or Trae Young to take over, they have nothing inside.
Yeah, and just adding to Trae Young taking over. I've always been a Trae Young fan. I think he's very fun to watch. I know he may deter people the wrong way sometimes, but I don't know that Trae Young's good enough to take over a game by himself yet. He's not. Of course, he's not that Steph Curry range. He's not Kevin Durant, whatever. I do think that it is possible in the next couple of years, but the Hawks are going to need to help him out with at least through the first 2, 3, 4 years here yet. And I don't know that the Hawks know that they need to do that. It feels like they believe that Trae Young may be as good as Steph Curry when it comes to shooting, or can take over a game, but like a Devin Booker or even a Chris Middleton, which I think we can both agree is not the case. And Trae Young turns the ball over a lot, and that just has to do with his high usage rate because Atlanta needs him to do that. So it almost feels like Atlanta needs a secondary star who's better than John Collins, almost like a Chris Middleton type player, right? So let's move on to the big game of the week. The one that was being billed, if you're watching college basketball, is being billed all week on ESPN. The Bucks went to Golden State to take on the Warriors, where they lost 122 to 109. On the Bucks side of the ball, Giannis with 31. Next highest scorer was Serge Ibaka with 15 off the, or I'm sorry, Chris Middleton with 18, and then the next was Serge Ibaka with 15 off the bench. On the Warriors side of the ball, um, you're not going to get this a lot out of Steph Curry, but 2 for 4 shooting from 3 point line. Only had 8 points, but we kind of got vintage Klay Thompson. Um, Klay Thompson had 38 points on 8 of 14 from the 3 point line, 15 of 24 shooting overall. You throw in another 30 from Jordan Poole and 21 from Andrew Wiggins. It makes sense why the Bucks lost this game, right? So I guess before we even get into the game, I guess just from a basketball standpoint, take your Bucks bias out of this, Trevor. It's nice to see Klay Thompson back, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to see him back. I didn't like it too much.
Right.
I think, ironically, the Warriors going into the game, I thought they were hindered by Draymond Green not playing. I think this game, I think they would have lost if Draymond Green had played, if they were healthy. Draymond Green, what he brings to this team is great, but looking at the starting lineup, they started Curry, Thompson, and Poole.
Hmm.
I love Thompson. I think he's a great defender, but like when Draymond comes back, when James Wiseman comes back, those minutes have to come from somewhere. And granted, a lot of them are going to come from Looney, but a lot of them are going to come from guys like Jordan Poole, Kaminga as well. So, um, I think they were helped by having to have Thompson and Poole out there at the same time for long stretches that they kind of needed them to shoot. If Draymond's in there, they're playing a completely different game, and I think the Bucks probably win. But when Klay Thompson and Jordan Poole go 13 to 24 from deep, combined for 68, there's really nothing much you can do. Like, you can't really hang your hats on that. It's just, it's just a game that you can't do anything about, really.
Hmm. And that's an interesting conversation to bring up about Draymond Green because he's been billed, he's defensive player of the year. Everyone you've made all-star games averaging what 8 points a game, yada yada, ultimate role player, whatever. This is not a matchup that we really have seen as Draymond Green on Giannis, right? And that's obviously due to both teams being on different sides of the country, not playing. But I'm really interested to see Draymond Green cover Giannis because that's the litmus test for him, right? If he's a Hall of Famer, he should be able to not stop Giannis, but to contain him. And I don't know. I don't necessarily know that's the case. Obviously, we won't know until it happens. But I don't necessarily think that that's possible for him to do. I don't think it's possible for anybody to do. Maybe not anyone in NBA history to contain Giannis. But to add on to that, you have to win a game when Steph Curry's only scoring 8 points. I know that Jordan Poole and Andrew Wiggins were both on fire, but Steph Curry's, he's a top 10 player in the league, arguably a top 5 player in the league. If he's only scoring 8 points, this has to be a win. I understand why they didn't win. It's hard to win when Klay Thompson gets hot, kind of like when Middleton gets hot. But if Steph Curry is only scoring 8 points, I think this game has to be closer than a 13-point loss.
Yeah, and one of the other things that kind of peeved me about this. Granted, the Bucks shot worse, and it's easier to get defensive rebounds than offensive rebounds. So,
Hmm.
if you as a team are missing more shots, it's very likely that the other team is going to get more rebounds. It's just how it works. The Bucks were out rebounded by 16, which at face value isn't a ton, but Curry had 5. Curry had 5. Poole had 6. Wiggins had 6. Kuminga had 11. Moody had 5. You look at the Bucks guards. Holiday had 1. Grace
Hmm.
Allen 3. Chris Middleton's a small forward 4. Like, you need more rebounding from these guards, and unfortunately, the only rebounding the Bucks really got from the guards was from the bench, who played fewer minutes and got more boards. So I don't know if that's really the tiredness or if that's just the game plan, try to run. But you're playing a team like this, and you need the rebounds. Your guards got to start getting active because that's just not going to cut it when Drew Holiday's getting 1.
And I was going to ask you this: do you think this loss and I guess the lack of rebounding was due to this being the fourth game of the week and kind of traveling all week and being tired, or was this kind of just a lack of effort?
I think it's a little bit of both. And I think the third thing that kind of goes into it is Clay and Poole are so hot.
Yeah.
Like, you're just kind of, when it's also tough because when they shoot, you're assuming it goes in. Like,
Yeah.
that's just how it works. And so I think subconsciously they were thinking, yeah, I'm going to get the rebound, but subconsciously, I don't think they were boxing out like they would if, Danilo Gallinari was popping threes, or Andrew Wiggins, because they were expecting them to fall. And I think
Mhm.
that's a hurdle that they definitely have to get over.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. Do you think that this could be a finals matchup?
It's tough. It depends. Golden
It is
State has
tough.
not been good lately.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see how they match up. Like, when I said Draymond Green would have lost the Warriors this game most likely, I meant only because his matchup against the Bucks I don't like. When the Warriors are playing the Suns and especially the Grizzlies, he's going to be huge for them.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I think it's possible. I think they're no longer the favorite though as they were at the beginning of the season. I think you'd have
Yeah.
to go Suns. But if Draymond comes back and looks like his old self, they're definitely second in line.
And I totally agree with you on that. And I just wanted to mention that too, that the Warriors, I think Jonathan Kuminga is going to be a good player. I don't know if he's ever going to reach that stardom, but I do think that he'll be in the league for at least a decade. I think the Warriors got a steal with him. Obviously, it helps when you suck last year and you can get a high draft pick. But he can definitely add to that bench scoring that we saw with those great Warrior teams with the Sean Livingston and David West and Leandro Barbosa and all those guys.
You didn't
Um,
even say Harrison Barnes from North Carolina. That's pretty
no,
sad.
no, he started that first year, but Shout out to Harrison Barnes, by the way. Shout out to Kayvon Looney and Jordan Poole, Milwaukee's finest. Of those two.
Let's not put Looney into Milwaukee's finest. Let's pump the brakes there.
To be honest, though, so I can't remember what year I was in high school, but anyways, Looney came up here and played in Green Bay, so we went and watched him play. And he had maybe the quietest 40 points I've ever seen in a high school basketball game before. And you know a little bit of Looney being down in Milwaukee. Are you surprised with how good of an NBA career he's had? I mean, he started on championship teams.
No, I'm not gonna take it that far. A lot of his starts were because of injuries. I mean, he's never even averaged 7 points a game. Like, I don't think he's bad.
Right.
I just don't think he's that good. Like, I just kind of got to tip the hat to him. Like,
Right.
he left UCLA early. I don't care what anybody says. That was a terrible decision. He had a
Yeah,
lot of growing he needed to do,
it was a
but
probably
he just fell in the lap of the perfect situation
yeah.
of Golden State where he has to do pretty much nothing. And he's got how many championship rings and how much money because of it? You can't really hate on it because look,
Right.
dude's getting paid, he's winning, he's playing. I mean, what else there to say? He's 26 and he's already played what 2, 4, 6, 7 seasons.
Yeah.
Respect for that.
Yeah, I was gonna say he may have made the wrong choice of going to UCLA for the first time because that was back when they were bad. Kind of before that Chris Mack era, I guess you can say, with Steve Alford there as coach. But Kayvon Looney's not in the league if he's not in the Warriors. I don't think. So
No.
like you said, he got to the perfect spot. All he really needs to do is get 5 to 6 rebounds a game and maybe block a couple shots, and just don't let the other opposing team center beat you, which has been kind of easy in his career because center it's kind of been a dying breed in the NBA. I guess it's starting to make a comeback a little bit here, but with those great Warrior teams, the centers were kind of lacking. I mean, look at Cleveland; they're starting Timothy Mozgov in finals games. So, and Tristan Thompson was getting starts in finals games. So shout out to Kayvon Looney, man. I'll support him. He's a Wisconsin guy, but he's not in the league if he's not in the Warriors.
I mean, he's made what 15-16 million dollars and he has 2 championship rings.
Mm-hmm.
You can do a heck of a lot worse at the age of 26.
Right. Yeah, he's another guy who probably owes his career to a point guard being Steph Curry. So shout out Kayvon Looney. Congrats on doing what you're doing. But just to get back into this game, there was one point in this game the Warriors led by 21 points. The Bucks obviously cut that down to 13. But to me, this game again too, I just we had talked about this. I'll put us on Fraud Watch here. Me and you did not watch this game. We were watching college basketball. Kind of looking at highlights of this game. This was almost another game where the Bucks looked a little bit tired at the end there. The Warriors closed this game out how championship teams close games out against good teams. In my mind, I guess from the little that I know, it felt like the Warriors just kind of put the Bucks in the grave come the fourth quarter. Although the Bucks did outscore the Warriors in the fourth quarter 25-19. But I don't know. It's like I'm still on the fact that Steph Curry's only scoring 8 points. It should be closer than a 13-point game. But I guess I'll stop rambling. Oh, here we go. This was last week. You had mentioned the Bucks are kind of they don't play well in third quarters. Warriors outscored them 36-26 in the third quarter of this game. So that just adds to another layer to maybe Budenholzer is not adjusting well at halftime. I know they beat him 39-30 in the second quarter, but coming off of you're losing by 9 points in the second quarter, you have to imagine that adjustments have to be made for that exact for the second quarter. What worked for them, you need to counter that. That didn't happen as the Bucks went down another 10 in the third quarter. So Trevor, I'll ask you this. Does this worry you against a good team that the Bucks lost the third quarter by 10 points?
Not this one, because they were really in shooting slumps to start the third and to end the third, which is weird. Usually I can see starting the third, but ending the third just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And that's where the Warriors just kind of nickeled and dimed them to pull away. So I'm not too worried, especially, taking an overarching look. They've won 6 out of 7. They won the other 3 this week, 3-1. Anybody would have taken that this week. Um, if we're starting to do that in the playoffs against the 8 seed, then I think there's a couple
Room for
question marks that
concern.
need to be answered.
Okay. Okay. So, Trevor, do you remember that new segment that I invented last week off the cuff of MVP of the week? Who was your MVP of the week?
Um, I would probably have to say Chris Middleton. I know Giannis put up 39, 43, and 31 and 8 against Golden State in that last game, but Chris Middleton won him the Phoenix game.
Mm-hmm.
And he might not have won him the Oklahoma City or the Atlanta game or the Golden State game, but that Phoenix one was big. The Bucks are running out of time here in terms of seeding. They have already played 68 games. They have 14 left. I don't know if they have enough juice to make up the Heat, who have a 2.5 game lead. But the 76ers, Bulls, Celtics, Cavs, they're right there.
Mm-hmm.
And the Bucks lose that game. They're now in a 3-way tie with the 76ers and Bulls, and only a half game above Boston. And now they have a little buffer. And so I think that performance was so much bigger than just one win at the end of the season.
And I totally agree with you. I was going to bring up Chris Middleton. I'll say Giannis just take the other side. Like you had mentioned with all his scoring outputs. Um, you know, the MVP tough is really close. The MVP race is really close right now. There are three, in my mind, three deserving players. I don't think you can be mad if any of those three players win the MVP, right? But this is going to be interesting down the stretch with Giannis because it almost feels like you need to get full Giannis for the rest of the regular season to have a chance at that 1 seed, to have a chance to catch Miami and to fend off, those other teams, Chicago and Cleveland and Philadelphia. Um, so I hope that isn't the case, but it almost feels like Giannis may need to go for 30 plus every single game the rest of the stretch, right?
Yeah, and who knows too? Like you'd obviously prefer the Bucks to get the 1 seed, but let's say Toronto beats Brooklyn in the playing games, and Brooklyn's now the 8, and the 3, and the 4-5 is the Bulls Celtics. Suddenly, I want to be a 2 seed.
Right.
So it's gonna be so weird. Looking at the Bucks last year, who knows? They probably wouldn't have won the finals if they're a 1 seed and didn't play until Brooklyn was healthy again.
Yeah.
So many moving pieces.
And I think another moving piece that throws a wrench in all of it is Kyrie Irving. I don't know that you want a 1 seed and go up against 8 Brooklyn, because the majority of those games Kyrie Irving's going to play. And whatever you feel about Kyrie Irving, he's a top 15, probably a top 10 player in the league right now. I think you need to maximize not playing Kyrie Irving, and it's really weird because you don't want to, because of how close it is. You don't really have much room to wiggle to kind of pick what seed you want.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a storyline to move down the line. Um, Something in my mind says that New York will let him play come playoff times, but who knows? Um, but I guess anything else you want to talk about for the week before we get in some previews here?
Nope.
So the Bucks have another ESPN game on Monday. Weird Monday ESPN game, but the Bucks travel to Utah to take on the 4th-seeded Utah Jazz, who have a 42-25 record. Donovan Mitchell is obviously the catalyst for their team, scoring 25.5 points a game. Looking at overall stats on the year, the Jazz are I guess you can say the second best 3-point shooting team in terms of field goals made. They make 14.6 a game. Like I said, good for second in the league. Fourth in field goal percentage, and fourth in rebounding. So, Trevor, what are your initial? I guess I'll go over injuries here for a second. Bucks. Brook Lopez is out. George Holiday's game time decision. Pat Connaughton's out. DeAndre Bembry game time decision. And the big one for Utah is Rudy Gobert's a game time decision. So I guess before I pose the question to you, in my mind, this game goes one of two ways. If Rudy Gobert doesn't play, the Bucks dominate this game. If he does play, this game may come down to the last possession. I don't know that Utah is good enough to blow the Bucks out, i.e. in the same breath as the Warriors. But it's obviously Rudy Gobert is the factor in this game. Am I guess am I ignorant in saying that, or how do you see this game going?
The Bucks don't do well at Utah. They they
Yeah,
just don't.
you're right about that.
If Rudy Gobert plays, I think Utah dominates. I don't think it's because they're good enough. I just think the Bucks kind of fall apart. They're down 9 going into third quarter, and we all know how that's going to play out. Um, so I just think if he plays, they get dominated. If he doesn't, I think it takes a big Mitchell or somebody else game to make it close. Although the Bucks should win, but it's going to be weird. 9 o'clock, Salt Lake City, anything happens.
Yeah, and Utah is always a tough place to play. Like they have, I mean, say what you want about their fans, but their fans are passionate about Utah. I guess it's really the only thing that they have in Utah is the Jazz, right? Um, and it feels to me too that this Jazz team is obviously not as good as like the Bucks were the 3-4 years before the championship, but they almost feel like they're kind of in that range where they need a break or maybe add another player. And I do think that Utah can definitely compete in the West. They kind of feel like a pretender in the West who's good, and who never really finishes playoff series. Do you see that the same way? So, so this will be a statement game for the Jazz, I would imagine. I'm sure they're going to give everything to knock off the defending champs, because I know those fans want something to cheer about in Utah, and I'm sure the players are kind of getting sick of getting those high to mid seeds, and not even making Western Conference Finals. So I imagine the Jazz will give the Bucks everything that they have here. And like you said, Bucks do not play well in Utah. I don't think anyone plays well in Utah. So it'll definitely be a fun game to watch on Monday night. I'll leave it at that. Anything else you want to mention?
Not for Utah.
Let's hit Team Ngannou in the chat here. Do you guys collect sports card? I do not. Do you?
I used to. Now, not as much anymore.
I'm almost wondering, and I know that you and Zach do the top shots all the time. That's almost kind of taking the place of sports. And I know sports cards are making a huge comeback. Um, to me, maybe it's a little bit more exciting with top shots, or maybe that's just because you and Zach make those shows.
I think for me, I think probably trading cards. I would say like the NFTs are probably a little better overall, but there's nothing better than when you pull a SIG or a jersey or a bat or a baseball card or whatever it may be. Those specialty ones that are rares.
Yeah,
There's nothing like pulling a physical card of that.
yeah, that's fair. Team Ngannou, if you do top shots or NFTs or anything, let us know. Let us know if you got anything cool and anything big, anything worth anything. Because I am interested in that. It's a whole new dynamic that kind of sprung up within the last 6 to 12 months. That's kind of interesting to follow. But let's move on to Wednesday. I think it is. Yeah, Wednesday. The Bucks travel to Sacramento on this Western Conference road trip. Sacramento, I know that they're the 13 in the West, but they may be the worst team in the NBA. Sacramento just doesn't. They don't deserve a team. They never do anything right. Considering they traded away Tyrese Halliburton, who was their number 2, to De'Aaron Fox, for Domantas Sabonis, who's a fine player, but you rather on a rebuilding team that Sacramento is, you rather have Tyrese Halliburton. Um, is there much to say about this game other than the Bucks should win by 20?
No, the Bucks better win.
Yeah.
You lose this, you can go 2-1 on this week, but if you lose that one loss to the Kings, it's a failure.
Yep. Just to let's talk about injuries for a second. I had mentioned the Bucks for the Warriors games; those injuries stand. Nothing too big, I guess. Sacramento, Domantas Sabonis has got a personal issue. It's a game time decision. We'll get a brother matchup here with Justin Holiday, Drew Holiday. Justin Holiday is game time decision, and Terrence Davis is out with a wrist injury. Um, Obviously, if Domantas Sabonis out, the Bucks should maybe win this game by 30, right?
Yeah.
Talk to me about Buddy Hield, about De'Aaron Fox a little bit. Where does just an estimate? Where does he rank on your, I guess, top players in the league, top 100, wherever?
Gosh, I have no clue about that. The one thing I do know is he's a solid point guard. He's a good starting point guard. I think he is where the Bucks and NBA fans thought Eric Bledsoe was going to be when the
Hmm.
Bucks traded for him.
Yeah.
That second or third option, I think he is great at that. He can at nights be that number one option, kind of like a point guard light version of Chris Middleton. I think that's what he is. Unfortunately, the Kings aren't surrounding him with anything,
Hmm.
and he is not good enough to be the one. And on most nights, he's not good enough to even be a solid two. He's more of a fringe two, high three.
Yeah. Um, so just to stick on De'Aaron Fox for a second, I do think that we would see obviously better efficiency, probably better overall play if he's that 2-3. He needs to leave the Kings. I don't know I don't know off the top of my head anything what fit that would be, but I don't know that anyone wants to go to the Kings right now unless they. I guess in order for the Kings to be relevant, they need to land a big name free agent, right? Because it feels like they're just going to keep drafting guys and keep trading them as we go along. De'Aaron Fox is only going to get older, so you're kind of running out of time to pair him with a young star, which I thought Tyrese Halliburton would have been, but that didn't. Apparently, the Kings wanted to go a different route with that. So the Kings are kind of in limbo, but they're in bad limbo, which they've been since that that 2001 2002 series when the refs kind of fucked this franchise up. So I'm almost wondering. I know the NBA wants to expand to Vegas, back to Seattle. Maybe I've heard Louisville running rumbles, even Cincinnati. I wonder if the Kings are at the forefront of being the team to move. I don't know anything about their ownership or GM or anything, but it feels like that would be a good starting spot for the NBA, right?
Yeah, and to where he could work, I think Fox would work very well in Miami. That would never happen.
Yeah,
But I think you put him to take the role of an aging Kyle Lowry. I think that would work pretty well.
I don't disagree with you on that. That's a good point. And let's round out the week here. The Bucks travel to Minnesota to take on the Minnesota Timberwolves. Timberwolves currently have a 39-30 record, good for seventh in the West. Um, Minnesota's kind of got a groove going on right now. Karl Anthony Towns averages just short of 25 points per game. Anthony Edwards is a stud. Malik Beasley hit 11 threes the other day. Um, I think the Timberwolves are a team that we're kind of in that Sacramento range, right? Where you don't really know. I mean, you don't have any hope for them. You don't even think about them. Minnesota's kind of turning that around a little bit. They're probably still some years of experience away, maybe a player or two. But Minnesota's not a team that you take lightly and you can kick the shit out of anymore, right?
Yeah, they're a weird team too. They're one of the hottest in the NBA, 8-2 over their last 10, 7-1 over their last eight. But four of those wins came against the Thunder and the Blazers, with three of those wins at home. So even though they have a good win at Heat, at Cleveland, against the Warriors at home, when you take into account those wins and a loss at Orlando, they're just kind of treading water almost in no man's land.
And with how young Minnesota is, they like to push the ball. They have the second highest pace in the NBA, and they have the most 3-point field goals made per game in the NBA with 14.7. Um, it's pretty similar to how the Bucks play. Getting the ball up the court and getting shots up. So, and then just to add on to that, Minnesota's averages 44.6 rebounds a game. That's right in the middle of 15 in the league. And they're tied for fourth in offensive rebounds, 11 and a half. So, Trevor, do those stats scream that this potential upset?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, they already beat the Bucks once,
Mm,
and that was much earlier in the season. But the story of that game was not really rebounding, which is kind of weird. It was only 49-43, so clearly it's not just rebounding that they can beat you at. They can do a lot of things. They have a lot of good scorers, playmakers. I'm just interested to see how they defend Karl Anthony Towns, because I don't think they have an answer for him.
yeah. And Karl Anthony Towns, he won the 3-point competition this year?
Yep.
So he can shoot the ball, like you said. Maybe that helps to get so Bobby Portis doesn't have to play inside. But I don't know that it does help because Karl Anthony Towns, can hit threes at like a 40% clip or whatever he shoots. Um, so that'll be interesting. Just go over injuries. There's one that I'm very interested in. First of all, Jared Vanderbilt game time decision with the quad injury. That's something I don't care about. Patrick Beverley is a game time decision with an ear injury, which is funny to say because not a knee or a foot or a wrist or anything. But every team that plays Minnesota does not want Patrick Beverley to play, right? Love him or hate him, I actually do like Patrick Beverley. I think he's very funny. He's the ultimate. He's a Carlos Gomez, the guy that you want on your team, but absolutely hate playing. I think Russell Westbrook fans will speak to that. But this is a point where Patrick Beverley, the Timberwolves don't need to win, but they want to win to solidify, a better seed. Patrick Beverley is going to get all he has in every single game, and that worries me for the health of Bucks players. Maybe I'm digging a little too deep into it, but I think something has to be said about Patrick Beverley and with how intense defense he plays coming down the stretch here, right?
I agree and I disagree. I think in most games, I would definitely agree that he adds something. This game, I think it depends how it plays out. I think, the first game, Minnesota scored 44 in the first quarter. Really didn't do anything the rest of the game, but that was enough to catapult them. If the Bucks get out to a quick lead or they're pounding Minnesota inside, he's got a quick temper, and if he gets teed up, this game could go off the rails real quick.
Yeah,
I don't think it will happen, but I think him always being a wild card certainly adds an interesting layer that if he wasn't in the game, I don't think anybody on Minnesota is really at risk of getting teed up and losing their heads.
which is fair. And then just to that point, I guess there's not much more to say about this game, right? Unless you have anything that you want to mention. But just to get to that point, how long into the game do you think we get, or how long does the game go on before Patrick Beverley and Bobby Portis get into it?
2 minutes.
Yeah, if that, right? Um, so that's our Bucks talk for the week. Is there anything else, Trevor, you want to mention about? I guess what do you the record for this coming week? What do you expect, and what would you be happy with?
You have to go 1-2 because if you lose to Sacramento, you have to make it up against somebody else. 1-2, I would be okay with, because that's probably not going to lose you too much seeding wise.
Mm-hmm.
2-1, I'd be happy with. 3-0, I don't think is possible, but man, if you could pull that off, that would be monumental.
Yep, I am in the same boat as you. Obviously, we had talked about the Heat kind of distancing themselves. It's going to be tough to catch them. They play the Pistons. Sorry, bear with me. They play the Pistons and the Thunder this week. So you got to imagine that's 2 wins right there for the Heat. So I'm almost wondering, in order to keep pace with them, you have to go 2-1.
Yeah.
So it'll be a fun week of Bucks basketball. Maybe they experiment a little bit in that Kings game, get some guys some run, get some different rotations going to get some things going for the playoffs. I know Trevor and I will both be sucked into Bucks, at least the first couple games of Bucks basketball this week, considering college basketball will take a break at 5 today until games that matter, I guess, on Thursday. So NBA will be at the forefront the first couple days of the week. So I guess catch us next week. Trevor, is there anything else you want to send people off with? Anything else you want to promote? Say anything at all? I'll
No.
get our I'll get our promotion in. I've been talking about it. All our conference preview stuff are done for college basketball. I'm sure we have some tournament articles coming out. Maybe a couple shows here and there. We don't know. I'll shout out Henry and Zach again with NASCAR. Zach, our fearless leader, Zach, has a USFL podcast going. That's definitely worth diving into. He's him and his co-host McCray. They're both great football minds. You'll get interviews with a player who's actually been playing football for a while. So that'll be fun to watch. And we have Lombardi Sweep going again. Plus, I know coaches starting to put out some some dynasty fantasy football stuff. So there's a lot of stuff coming out right now. It's a fun time to follow Flurry Sports. We'll give you everything you need to know. But on that note, I think we're done here. And enjoy Bucks basketball, and good luck filling out your bracket. I guess, Trevor, before we send off, do you have any preliminary thoughts without looking at a bracket? Who's going to win?
Bet against every single team in the Big Ten. Every
That's
single team. They will
that's
let you
fair.
down every single time.
That's fair. So on that note, let's get out of here and have a good upcoming week, everyone.